All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Kubernetes community meeting and will be posted publicly on YouTube. So please be mindful of that you say or wear or eat or laugh will be recorded and will be posted. My name is Arun Gupta. I work for Amazon. I work in the open source team here at Amazon, and I show up in SIG AWS often, doing some fun discussions over there. So please, for everyone, please be mute when you are not speaking. And today we are going to start with, first of all, I see that Solly Ross from SIG Autoscaling is a note taker. Is that right?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Solly. So we're going to start with a demo today, and the demo is answering questions on Kubernetes Slack with Foqal. Vlad, you ready?
Yep. 1 second to share screen. So I'm sorry to everybody that's been on the Contribex channel that already knows all this stuff, but here you go again. So, my name is Vlad, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Foqal Slack bot. It's a Slack bot that's installed on a few of the channels on the Kubernetes Slack instance. So the goals of this thing are to improve user experience and focus contributor time. And what does that actually mean is a lot of times when a user joins the Kubernetes Slack channels, they come in, ask a question, and whether it's because they're asking at 2 a.m. on a Saturday or because the question is too vague or whatever, a lot of times the questions just don't get answered. And sometimes they'll post again, still don't get an answer. And at the same time, contributors a lot of times spend time answering kind of repeat questions. In a study, I found that 30% of the time people feel like they're spending on just repeat questions. And 20% of the time they're spending on answering questions that are already well documented that they don't need to answer. So let me show you how we're solving both of those with a quick demo. So imagine I'm a user, and this is within my kind of test workspace, but imagine I'm a user and I come in and I ask like, hey, how do I run a conformance test? So what happens is when I hit enter, without me having to do anything else, Foqal will use AI to determine that I'm asking a question. It will find the most useful answer, and it will send it back to me directly. So what you'll notice here is, one, I didn't in any way invoke Foqal. I don't even have to know that Foqal. Two, it sends the message directly to me within the channel. So I'm not overpopulating the channel. I'm not spamming the channel with too many messages. So what you'll see is that there's a couple of different answers that are, potentially helpful to me. And what I could do is I can rate these answers, whether they're actually helpful or not. So if I click not helpful, message simply disappears. If I click helpful and I still have a question, then we'll record that feedback. And finally, if you click helpful and answer question, what we'll do is we'll post the message to the rest of the channel, notifying the channel like, hey, this is already answered. You don't have to worry about answering it again. So basically, this is a very short kind of description of like how a user quickly interacts with Foqal, quickly gets their questions answered. So let's take a look at where these questions are even coming from. So a bunch of questions, 9,500, close to 9,600 questions were actually downloaded from the Kubernetes tagged questions within Stack Overflow. The next section, 17 close to 1,800 questions were downloaded from Kubernetes docs. Now, what that means is when we are showing somebody one of the sections of docs, we don't want to send them to the entire doc, right? We want to only show them the most relevant section. So what we did was when scraping the Kubernetes docs, we actually divided it into smaller sections so that when we're showing an answer from a doc, we only show a very small relevant section. And the last part of where these things come from is previous Slack conversations. And let me show you how that works. So imagine, and for this, I'll just do the slide demo instead of doing a live demo. So imagine that Michael and Kay are talking. So Michael is asking a question about how to create a Kubernetes pod. Kay responds with some information. Michael's happy, right? So at that point, Foqal not only detects that Michael's asking a question, but it also detects that Kay is helping Michael with a relevant answer. So at that time, Foqal will send a message again, only directly visible to Kay, and ask her to, hey, this is very useful. Can we store this for the future and show it to others? At that point, she can ignore the question. She can edit the question and answer to provide more context, make it more useful, improve it in whatever ways, and finally click store. And when she does that, this question answer pair becomes visible and searchable and is available to others as in the future with similar questions. And Foqal will automatically show that up. So let's take a look at kind of what the results of this so far are. So we've been running a little bit over 3 months on mainly 2 active channels until recently. In the last 2 weeks, 37 of these responses have been automatically marked as something that's helpful to somebody. And a total of 189 times since June has we been marked as something that's helpful. If we look at the breakdown of where these helpful questions come from, Stack Overflow, those questions, even though we actually have the most of those questions, they're only been helpful 10% of the time. The Kubernetes docs, which were actually added fairly recently, but 40% of the useful answers are coming from Kubernetes docs, and close to 50% comes from these previous Slack conversations. So we can see that the most of our value is actually coming from our community itself. And more specifically, we could take a look at like who on the who's providing the most useful answers, if this is interesting. So in this case, Hubert Chen added 10 questions, 8 of which were marked useful at least once. And out of these 8 questions, they were marked useful a total of 16 times. And you can kind of get the idea. This guy Bob on the call right now added 11 questions, 4 of which were useful, and those 4 were useful 9 times. So, so what's kind of interesting is what is the most helpful answer? There's actually a tie between the most helpful answers, but I thought this one was a little bit funnier, is that somebody's basically having a problem with deleting something within a pod. And obviously the answer is just to, insert a dash into the command. So what we've been doing recently is talking to the kind of the documentation community, to the docs people, to see how we can work together and then use the kind of responses from Foqal and the feedback loop to improve the docs and kind of like improve the searchability of the docs, maybe provide more examples and just kind of see what we can do in the future. So the other thing that's interesting is people not only like love it, but they actually even expect it to be there. So one person was asking a question, and this user's Scarbeck responded, the Foqal bot probably already responded to you, but here's some additional documentation, or here's some additional context. Or in this case, Edward was asking a question, and finally at the end of this question kind of says, well, hopefully Foqal can help with this. The sad part is that the channel that Edward asked this question on was not already signed up for Foqal, so we were not able to help him because it wasn't installed on his channel. So with that in mind, the short call to action here is invite Foqal on your Kubernetes channel. If you're in the Kubernetes Slack workspace, just do /invite at Foqal. You could do /Foqal and type in something, and it'll show you. There's a bunch of different ways to add a bot to a channel. Talk to me if you don't figure that one out. I'll help you. And we're asking you to invite it to multiple places. So first, invite it to your user-facing channels. When you add it to your user-facing channels, we can do this whole like feedback loop, providing useful answers to people. And at the same time, we're saying you can add it to your like SIG channels, and you can store information such as, or like whatever the most common questions there are, such as, when is the meeting time and where's the YouTube channel and so on. So to add the questions, you'll see that obviously this will pop up, and all we're asking is maybe improve the context a little bit and click store. So make sure to add your useful context and useful answers to Foqal. You can also manually add questions if you like. If you hover over any message in Slack, you'll see the ellipsis button. Click on that, and you'll see add to Foqal, and you'll see a dialogue about like adding what is the question and answer to add. So talk to me about integrations. So what we can do is because if part of your project is in some other different workspace, talk to me and we can figure out how to import that information and kind of like scrape and pull different sources and put that into Foqal so that we can make that available to your users. Talk to me about partitioning. So one thing that we realize is that, like, what time you're meeting for SIG and TRIBEX or something is probably not relevant to the Kubernetes user channel. So what we can do is we can create logical separations of information and kind of finally control how data flows between these, so that a question might only appear within SIG and TRIBEX, or an answer might only appear within SIG and TRIBEX, and a different answer might only appear within Kubernetes user, and we can control how this data flows. And finally, install Foqal everywhere else. If you're already in Kubernetes Slack, you can just install it. It's already installed, so just add it to your channel. If you want to install it to a different kind of open community, let me know. The best way to contact me is either through email, or you can find me on the Kubernetes Slack as just under my name. So if you want to open it, if you want to install it on any open channel, or you can go to foqal.io/OSS. Or obviously, you can install it within any company. What we do there is instead of pulling from things like Stack Overflow and your docs, what we can do is we can pull from Wiki and Jira and all these other things. So this actually is designed to mainly work within a company as well. So with that, I know I kind of ran through this quick. What questions do you have?
We have time for one question. You're already over time, so maybe we'll take one question if there is any. Okay. All right. I guess none. Thank you, Vlad, for the wonderful demo. And it always blows my mind when I see how these integrations come along, and these organic integrations are really very helpful. All right, cool. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please reach out to Vlad directly and invite Foqal to your Slack channels. The next item on the agenda is release updates. Tim Pepper, are you ready for 1.12 release updates?
Yep. So I'm Tim Pepper, your 1.12 release lead. A couple of updates right now. We are still in code freeze. We had our beta 2 release this week, and the release candidate will be coming out next week. We're working towards a release target of September 25th, but at this point, that's starting to trend at risk. We've had quite a bit of CI signal breakage, and we're making progress there, but it's been slow. We've done a lot of good debugging in the last even just 14 hours probably, but because some of our tests take a bit of time to run, and we basically got 7 work days to the release target at this point, and once you subtract a day or 2 or 3 even for CI signal to prove that something was actually resolved, we're running short of work days to actually accomplish improvements. So we'll make a call on Monday, depending on how things pan out based on yesterday's debug, today's and tomorrow's merges, and the weekend's test results. But by Monday, we may make a choice to slip the release a couple of days. I'm still relatively hopeful compared to maybe last week. I would say we're trending in the greener direction versus the redder direction, but still squarely in the middle yellow state of risk. So stay tuned. We'll have some updates next week on that front. Also, I'll mention that we moved KK to Tide on Monday, and you may or may not have noticed that. We mentioned it last week in the community meeting here as something that was coming, but slight hiccup or two at the beginning of the week, and it seems like things are humming along at this point, but just an FYI there. And that's my update for the week. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Any questions for Tim? Okay, I guess none. Any other minor release updates that anybody want to provide? Okay, then we'll keep moving on that. So no more release updates for this call. There is no cap of the week this week. I was talking to Caleb and couldn't find one. Is anybody want to present a graph of the week this week? Okay, that section can be blown away then. Are there any open caps that we can talk about? Okay, yeah, I tried to reach out to people, but nobody was available to do this. That section goes away as well. We do have 2 SIGs that can provide an update. So the first one is SIG Windows. Michael, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you, guys.
All right, awesome. Take it away.
Essentially on SIG Windows, we've been humming along. We got to the point where we have finished a lot of our functionality in terms of feature set that we wanted to provide to be able to graduate our Windows support to stable for Kubernetes. Unfortunately, we've hit some hiccups in stress and performance and scale testing. And we are proposing that we are going to graduate to stable, but with 1.13 and not with 1.12. So we are right now finalizing a draft of our feature freeze for us, so we can actually stop working on features and start concentrating on stability and conformance. And start also finalizing our API docs, general documentation, how-to guides, and everything else that's necessary to graduate to stable. So we're putting the stop on new features and concentrating almost 100% on stability and getting us ready for GA with 1.13. Thank you.
All right, very cool. Any questions for Michael? Okay, if none, then we can move on. The next update that we have is from SIG-Node. And Dawn Chen, are you on the call?
Yes, I do. And
okay, thank you, Dawn. And I saw somebody drop the link to the slide just now.
Yes, yes. Let me first post the slides here.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Take it away when you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. Can someone help me to, sorry, I didn't log in, dial in, and can someone help me to open the share, the present the slides?
I can do that. Let's see if I can get access to this. Then I can. Okay, let me share my screen here so that others can see.
So,
all right.
Since last update from the SIG-Node, it is the last update a quarter ago. So this is, I'm going to update what happened in the Q3. Sorry, can you go to the next one, please? Thanks. So we finally have finished the initial SIG-Node charter, and the PIs merged. And also we have like we go through the new room meeting as expected and defined by steering committee. And we still hold the meeting weekly every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And in these slides, I have that all our notes and also the link to the YouTube videos. In addition, and actually we also hold sponsored and hold bi-weekly resource management work group, and every Wednesday, 11 a.m. And also on demand, we also have, I didn't put it in the slides, actually we also have the Asian Pacific SIG-Node meeting, because there's also a lot of work involved with the different vendors. So especially on the earlier stage on the container runtime implementation and the CI implementation. Can we go to the next slide? Thanks. So during the Q3, we reviewed our original SIG-Node, the scope, and update what is under this SIG. So we categorize 5 areas, like what we talked before. It is include of the node lifecycle management, application management on the node, and include of the container runtime, all those kind of things. And also resource management include of the device management and also computer resource management like the CPU memory, and also include storage management. Collaborate with the SIG storage. We also, and there's also the security and the isolation on the node. And then there it is the instrumentation and logging on the node. Can we go to next one? So now I'm going to quickly update what we delivered, what the in progress in Q3. So the first one I want to mention that we made another quota steady progress on the sandbox support. So there's the runtime class proposed, and which it is being accepted by the SIG architecture and approved by the SIG node. And in the Q3, we deliver this feature, runtime class API feature as the alpha feature, and also implement of the runtime class API CRD, and also there's the change to support on the node side to support the runtime class. And also we have worked very close with the Kata community and also container community to integration with the Kata and also sandbox solution. Especially we involve heavily with the Containerd community and to help them define Containerd sham API version 2, so which it is better integrated with other sandbox solutions. Can we go to next slide? Thank you. So, like earlier, SIG Windows update, and we also work very close in this quarter. We also very close with the SIG Windows. We help the working together with the Windows SIG Windows community and undefined Windows support GA criteria. And there's the document in here, and we also loop instead of only, because the support of the Windows container, it is actually by Kubernetes, actually it is a support of new platform, Windows platform. So we working together and expanded the working community, include of the SIG storage and the SIG network. And in the Q3, what deliver on the node, most here it is on the SIG node. We add the kube status for Windows system containers, such as the Kubernetes and the container runtime. So basically on the node, we already have all the node and the system related specs for Windows platform. And also there's the several regression fix on the Windows container on the node. And beyond that, there's a many proposal made by the SIG Windows folks and Microsoft folks. So there's the DNS capability support for Windows CNI, and also there's the proposal for Windows CNI support. We need, I'm listed here because I want to call out of the SIG network attention. Please help us to review those PRs and speed up of the velocity on the Windows support. And then there's also a couple of the PR proposed to the our test info repo for automated Windows testing framework. And I also call out for the SIG test help on here to review those PRs. Can we go to next slide? Then in the Q3, we also spend a lot of time to revise our testing framework. There's the announcement for the change in the node HE test, and it's been reviewed by SIG architecture, and we introduced the new set of the tag to tag of the node related features and the node related of the conform test. We also build in our community dashboard. We have the specific CI testing dashboard. So other container runtime can easily to plug into that dashboard, and also user or vendor, the Kubernetes vendor can easily look at those CI related dashboard and figure out what kind of the container runtime they plan to use. Since both the Containerd and the CRI, it is in product ready states, but each one of them have the distinguish of the feature support. So that's why we think about this can help our community to figure out how to choose their container runtime in their production. Can we go to next one? So we also made a lot of other progress. I only highlight a couple of things. So there's the progress made for the user namespace support. And currently we moved to retarget to the Q4 OKR. And there's many discussing to provide abstraction on the resource class to support the more device and call the resource class API. And because this is a complicated API, so still under discussing. And we try to looking for more than other use cases more than GPU support to make this unblock this process. And also there are a lot of progress made for the efficient heartbeat and to achieve better scalability. And this one, it is retargeted to the 1.13. There's some of the work is already merged, and some still is under discussing, under development. We also, in this Q3, we also promoted the process namespace sharing to the beta. And also, we finally achieved agreement on the debug container at API and implementation. So the proposal merged and the implementation is under development. So that's all updates for the Q3 from the Signal.
All right. Thank you, Don. Thank you. That's very helpful. Any questions for Don on Signal? Boy, no questions. We are blazing through the agenda today. Thank you, Don, once again. All right. I am going to move on to announcements. We are already to the last part of the agenda here. So there is announcements from Paris. I see that. Paris, you are on the call?
Yes, I am. Hi, Arun. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. This is your weekly Kubernetes Steering Committee announcement. Myself, Eeyore, and George are all election officials, so you'll be hearing from us throughout this entire election cycle. Listen up, tomorrow is the deadline for all nominations. This includes the entire process, which is all the way up to bios uploaded to GitHub. And that is, the deadline is 11:59 UTC. And we will be strict with that. Also, that same deadline of tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. UTC is also the deadline for the voter eligibility forms. What this means, if you are not listed on the voter's MD file, which I will include, I see that's not a link in the agenda right now, but I will include a link to that. If you're not on that file, that means that we do not have you listed as eligible to vote. The steering committee has decided that 50 contributions or higher in the last 12 months is the threshold. However, if you feel like you have made more than 50 contributions that would include things like non-code or non-GitHub events that relate to upstream community, please go ahead and fill out that form. We will be updating the voter's MD file with folks that are approved, and then send out other communications to folks who are not. Next, the CIVS polling ballots will go out this coming Wednesday, September 19th, to the emails that we have on file for those eligible voters. If you do not receive an email by Thursday, also please definitely check your spam and or bulk, because this is coming from CIVS, which does do bulk emails. So if you have any kind of testy filters, please definitely check that. But if you do not get an email from CIVS, please contact community@kubernetes.io. We can definitely send you a new ballot, so don't fret to think that you are not included in the election. We can definitely get that to you. We'll, of course, remind everyone again on this call next week, as well as all of our regular channels, which includes Kubernetes development mailing lists, discuss.kubernetes.io, and Slack, of course. And that's it for us. And we'll be doing this again on a weekly basis all the way up until October 4th.
Thank you, election officials, for keeping it straight and honest. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I guess we are heading towards one of the shortest Kubernetes community meeting today. The last part of the agenda really here is shout outs. So if you know anybody, if you know of somebody who has done something great and I want to say thanks, use the #shoutouts channel in the Slack. So what I'm going to do is now a readout from the shoutouts channel, essentially from last community meeting up until now. The first one is from MZE1000. Shout out to Ash Sundar and Guinevere for incredible help with CI Signal. The next shout out is from Ash Sundar. Huge shout out to Guinevere once again for lighting up the right fires when and where needed for 112. Way to go. The next one is from Just Augustus. Shout out to Doug M, Dims, Ben Telder, Stitz, and anyone I might have missed for working the weekend to test our release engineering tooling ahead of the next beta cut. Shout out from Misty, Luke Perkins for adding per heading anchor links to the doc so people can share an in-page section at any level without having to go back in the doc to find the link. Next one from Neolit123. Thanks to Timothy Sinclair and Fabrizio Pandini, who helped with debugging a release blocking E2E testing for SIG cluster lifecycle. Next one from M. Kumatag. Now we have V112.0 beta 2. Release images are all fat manifest. This made all other architectures first-class citizens. Thanks. Dims, Doug M, XD, Lucas, Caleb Miles, T. Pepper, Bent Helder, Paris, and Bent Helder. Okay. Next shout out from Paris. Shout out to A. Kwam for helping Contribex with our communication platform discovery and doing the hard work. Perfect example of chopping wood and carrying water. Last but not the least, shout out from Tim Pepper. Huge shout out to Bent Hilder for working late last night and right back to it this morning on diagnosing, resolving build pipeline issues in support of 112 release. So that's it from my side. Is there any other last minute question people want to ask, discuss here? And go release team. I think that's about it. Now we're going to wrap up. We're going to give you 28 minutes back to your life. Enjoy, everyone. Thanks.